Well, I finished the book. Chapter 65 through 72. And wow. Just wow. This ending doesn't feel like a normal fantasy ending at all. It feels like the world breaks open. And not just because big things happen, though they absolutely do. But by the end of the book, the story has moved beyond court intrigue and secession politics into something much deeper. First of all, Ned is, well, dead. Ned is dead. Arya is lost. Sansa is trapped. Robb is crowned. Jon chooses the wall. And Daenerys walks in the fire and brings dragons back into the world. So this final section feels like the moment when the political story and the mythic story finally stop circling each other and collide. Now, first of all, the first great shock, of course, it's the first chapter I read in this section, chapter 65, is Ned's death. Even though things were going badly, I still thought there might be a way out. Because I was thinking Ned will be given mercy by being exiled and being forced to take the black to join the Night's Watch. Because Ned ends up doing exactly what's demanded of him. He confesses publicly. He says what they want him to say. And I think the reason's obvious. He's doing it to protect Sansa, to protect his daughter. Not because he believes it, not because he's surrendered morally, but Varys made it very clear that this is no longer about Ned's own life. It's about his daughter's. Varys said that they would bring her head to him. And what makes this scene so horrifying is that everyone around him seems to understand that mercy is the sensible move. Cersei wants it. I mean, it'd be good to have a person like Ned to trade for Jaime, who's been taken captive. Sansa expects it. The political logic points toward it. But Joffrey, out of vanity and cruelty, chooses spectacle instead. That's the moment where it becomes impossible to pretend that King's Landing is still operating according to any stable rules. This isn't even cunning evil. It's reckless evil. And it changes everything. And what makes Ned's death even more devastating is that Arya is there. This is an Arya chapter. It's not an Eddard chapter. It's an Arya chapter. She's there. She hears everything start going on. She hears him come onto the platform and begin speaking. And she almost sees it. But then Yoren grabs her and forces her not to look. And that detail is brutal. It's sort of understandable. Because you can understand a child of Arya's age is like you want to shield them from seeing something like that. But also I can understand her needing to see it as well. Because she doesn't get the closure of seeing it clearly. She gets shock, terror, confusion, and then instant flight. And from that moment on, her old life is over. The line that really struck me says pretty much exactly that. But Arya's life was gone. That's bigger than just escape. It means her identity as Ned Stark's daughter, as a child of Winterfell, as part of an ordered world. All of that is shattered right there in the crowd. Arya doesn't just lose her father, she loses the world in which she made sense. And then we go north. And Bran's chapter is one of those chapters that I really find so very important, because it keeps insisting that dreams matter. He's with Master Luwin, who dismisses Bran and Rickon's shared dream as just fear, grief, and childish confusion because their father is captive. They don't know that Ned has been killed yet, but that's essentially what the dream is about. They see Bran sees his father in his father's tomb, talking to him. But Osha does the opposite. The wildling Osha, she treats the dream as real in some deeper way. And what I love here is that Martin keeps setting up this contrast between the educated, rational, civilized worldview and the older, stranger, half-forgotten one. Luwin has learning, but the wildling Osha has instinct, memory, and the knowledge of old terrors. And increasingly, the book seems to suggest that the old stories are closer to the truth. That matters because these final chapters are about the world becoming mythic again. The children of the forest, the giants, the others, the old gods, the songs of the trees, all of that stops feeling like background flavor and starts feeling like the deeper reality beneath the politics. But then we jump back to Sansa's storyline, and it's very different from the previous section, this video I made. Because this is no longer about her illusions leading her astray. That already happened. Now it's about what remains after the illusion breaks. Sansa is essentially Orwell at the end of Till We Have Faces now. Sansa now sees herself. She sees herself for what she's done, and she sees Joffrey for who he really is. She begged Joffrey for mercy. She trusted the promise of mercy. And then she watched him betray even that. So what we see now is not naive Sansa anymore. We see a traumatized Sansa. Her nightmare about Sir Island Pain coming for her with ice is one of the most chilling moments in the section, because it shows that the violence done to her father has invaded her own inner life. And then when Joffrey comes to her chamber and tries to force her back into courtly obedience, she finally says the truth to him plainly. It's 3 words. I hate you. That matters. Sansa's no longer asleep inside the songs. The songs have failed her. Now she's beginning to wake up. Then, at the wall, this section is much more uh, uh, there's a scene where Jon has to choose duty. And there's a scene between Jon and Lord Commander Mormont. Jon hears of Ned's death and does what any son would want to do. He rides south. He wants to be with his family, to help them. And that's what makes this section so strong. Jon's not choosing between good and evil. He's choosing between two good claims on him: his family and his vow. That's a real moral tragedy. And Lord Commander Mormont's response is perfect. Honor set you on the king's road. And then he says, and honor brought you back. Now, of course, Jon says, it was my friends that brought me back. And Mormont says, I didn't say it was your honor. Who our friends are is incredibly important. But that's such a good line because it recognizes that honor isn't simple. Honor can pull a man in opposite directions. Love for family sent Jon south, but faithfulness to duty brought him back. And Jon's final acceptance of that is deeply moving. He understands this is my place. That doesn't make the choice painless, but it does make it costly. And costly choices are exactly what this book keeps returning to. The other great Jon moment here is when Mormont gives Jon his family sword, reshaped with the wife wolf pommel. It's a huge honor. But what makes the moment powerful is Jon's inward response. He recognizes he is not my father. That's important because Jon can accept the gift, the role, the duty, even the love of a new community, and still refuse to let those things erase Ned or his brothers and sisters. That's a very human and very moving detail. He's being remade, but he refuses to be rewritten. But then we come to the Riverlands, and this is where the book's political plot suddenly becomes national and almost epic. Catelyn is still in grief, and the grief shapes everything. And what I love about her in these chapters is that she is one of the few people thinking not just of victory, but of cost. She wants her daughters back. She wants her son safe. She wants home. And that speech of hers, toward the end, I think it was, is one of the best in the book because it cuts through all the masculine rhetoric of vengeance and glory and essentially says, enough is enough. But then the answer that comes back is not peace. It's something older. When the great John rises and calls Robb the king in the north, the entire room changes. It's an electrifying scene because it's not merely rebellion, it's memory. An old identity burned for centuries, buried for centuries, suddenly comes back to life. And it feels almost liturgical the way they keep repeating it. Swords drawn, knees bent, old words spoken again. And they keep saying, the king in the north, the king in the north, the king in the north. And this is very Tolkienian to me because Tolkien loves those moments when history awakens inside the present. Old kingdoms, old loyalties, old names returning with force. Robb isn't just becoming a military leader. He's becoming a symbol. Meanwhile, the Lannister side reveals something very important. Tywin understands immediately what Joffrey has done wrong. Ned could have been used, but Ned dead becomes a banner for war. That's what Joffrey doesn't understand. Politics isn't just about punishing your enemies. It's about managing consequences. And Tywin sending Tyrion to King's Landing is fascinating because it means even Tywin doesn't trust Cersei and Joffrey to control the damage they're causing. At least the damage that Joffrey is causing. He doesn't trust Joffrey, and he doesn't trust Cersei to be able to control Joffrey. So the Lannisters may hold the throne, but they're already unstable. They've won the position, but they have not won control. This is not a stable shifting of power after Robert's death. It's anything but. I would not be surprised if I would not be surprised if Joffrey's reign doesn't last very long because this is not a stable government right now. But then we come finally to the true climax of the book. We come to Daenerys. Because unlike the other storylines of Westeros, which end in grief, uncertainty, and suspended conflict, Dany's storyline ends in revelation. But first, it goes through total loss. Her son, her unborn son, is dead. Drogo is gone in all but body. The Khalasar is collapsing. The prophecy seems broken. Even her attempt to save Drogo becomes the instrument of devastation. And what's especially strong here is that Mirri Maz Duur is not a simple villain. She's not wrong to ask Dany what exactly she saved. That confrontation matters because it forces Dany, and I think the reader, to face the human cost of conquest. The Dothraki violence is not romantic. It's horrifying. So even here, in Dany's mythic rise, Martin refuses mere simplification. There's the line that Dany keeps repeating, "If I look back, I am lost." That line governs all of Daenerys' ending. If I look back, I am lost. I'm kind of reminded of the phrase in the New Testament, referring to the Old Testament, remember Lot's wife. Of course, Lot's wife looked back and she turned into a pillar of salt. If I look back, I am lost. It's one of the defining lines of the book, because it means Dany cannot live in regret, explanation, or the ruins of what might have been. She cannot remain only widow, victim, sister, or bereaved mother. She must move forward or cease to exist as a meaningful force in the world. She has to keep moving forward. And that's exactly what she does. She frees the slaves. She calls for loyalty. She begins to speak as a queen. And even when the men around her hesitate, she does not. That's when you realize Daenerys is no longer becoming something. She's become it. And then comes the pyre scene. And this is so epic. and so, just epic. And what makes it so powerful is that it feels like several things at once. It feels like a funeral. It feels like sacrifice. It feels like judgment. It feels like coronation. And, as Dany herself thinks, a wedding as well. This isn't merely a spectacular ending. It's a transformation scene. Daenerys goes into fire And instead of being destroyed, she's revealed. And that matters because for the whole book, she's been associated with dragon blood, dragon dreams, dragon eggs, dragon destiny. Now all of that becomes visible reality. Viserys claimed the dragon and died. Dany never needed to claim it so loudly. She becomes it. And then we get that final line. And when I read this, it's just so good. Such a good way to end. For the first time in hundreds of years, the night came alive with the music of dragons. That line is extraordinary. And I think it means much more than simply dragons made noise and dragons returned. I think it's much more because the word music is charged here. Especially for a reader like me who's a fan of both Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. In Tolkien's mythology, the world begins in music, the music of the Ainur. Creation itself is sung before it's embodied. And in C.S. Lewis as well, in The Magician's Nephew, Narnia comes into being through song. Music is not ornament, it's creation, it's order, life, it's world-making power. So, by ending a Game of Thrones, not merely with dragons returning, but with the music of dragons, it feels like Martin's world has crossed a threshold. The old order is broken, or at least breaking. Politics has consumed kings and fathers and daughters and houses. But deeper powers are waking up. And the final note of the book is not the sound of a sword or a crown. It's music. Which makes me think the true story here is bigger than secession, bigger than the Iron Throne. This is not only a game, it's a song. Dare I say, a song of ice and fire. And if fire has now found its music, then whatever's coming from the north may be the answering note, the song of ice. So, by the end of book 1, Ned's dead, Arya's lost, Sansa's trapped, Jon has chosen duty, Robb is king in the north, and Daenerys has brought dragons back into the world. And all this means the political story is no longer the whole story. The old tales are returning. The myths are waking up. And the final image of Daenerys standing in the ashes with dragons on her body tells me that Westeros is no longer living in the world it thought it inhabited. The game's still being played, but the song has finally begun. Whew, it's, man. I'm sure there's going to be still a lot of politics in the next books, but the story is heading in more of a direction that I'm able to hold on to. The politic parts of this book are just so wearying to me. But now that the song has begun, at least part of the song, the Song of Fire, now that the song has begun, it's cool. Man. Anyway, I'll see y'all next time for a Clash of Kings, I guess. Like I wasn't sure how I would like this, but I'm invested now. I couldn't get into the series, the TV series, but but the book, I'm invested in it now.